gentlemen, welcome to the Spinning Our Gears podcast. As a reminder to all those Blue Falcons still listening in and following us, suck my... Nope, that's not it. That's for later. As a reminder, the issues, views, and opinions discussed on the podcast are those of the co-hosts and their guests and do not reflect that of any department, agency, city, municipality, state, or country. All stories, characters, and individuals discussed on the podcast should be considered fictional for entertainment value. This show is rated explicit and listener discretion is advised. If you don't like it, don't listen. If you do like it, please like, share, and subscribe. We are on all major platforms and social media, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, Good Pods, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and of course our website, www.spinningourgears.com. Head on over, check it out, and feel free to contact the guys. Now, without further fanfare and ado, I'm proud to present to you your co-hosts, Turk and Swagger. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Spinning Our Gears. I'm Turk. This is normally where I would say, here's Swagger, and we're a couple of cops spinning our gears, but it turns out the FBI, the CIA, and the DEA just raided him, and he's going to be in jail for a little bit. He's waiting extradition to Colombia, I think it is, so none of us were expecting that. There will be a GoFundMe for his bail. It's currently set at $2.2 million, and every cent counts, so if you guys could jump into that, that'd be great. In all seriousness, though, I've got a really cool guest here today. Different cop is going to be spinning his gears with me. Today, I'd like to welcome Kenyon to the show. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks. I'm actually not surprised. I listened to the last couple episodes of you guys, and I'm not surprised he was raided.
We're not sure what the charges are yet. They won't let him call out. He has not been given his one phone call, but we know that the bond's pretty high, so we'll wait for that. But what are you up to, man?
Well, not much. Just the regular job. Of course, I got switched to the day shifts lately, so I'm getting used to driving around in the traffic instead of, the other cars or the other headlights on the road being just other cops.
Yeah, they wave at you different on day shift.
They do. They use the one finger on day shift.
Oh, they use the one. So with us, it's the other way around. On night shift, you get the one finger, and on day shift, it's all five. A little bit different.
We're all topsy-turvy over here.
So Kenyon is the creator, the producer, the manager, all of it for Tased and Confused, which is it's big on TikTok, but he's also got several other social media platforms. And I happened to see, I think the first video that I saw with you was that guy or that rookie guy at the academy.
Yeah.
Way back like over a year ago. Yeah. So he does a lot of awesome stuff over there where he basically just takes the life of a cop and he kind of put into, what would you say, like a skit type of a platform?
Yeah. That's kind of the gist of it. A couple of them, I like to do the skits. I've done a couple of them of just like the different trends on TikTok too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think there's one of you stuffing your face with like 10 donuts and yeah. So
I saw that one. I had to do that.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I was going to do it, and then I saw you do it, and I was like, after I made fun of you, there was no point in.
So I made a mistake with that, though. I went and I picked the most dense donuts that I could have picked because we don't have a Krispy Kreme. So the original guy that did that, he had Krispy Kreme donuts, and if you know Krispy Kreme, they are 90% air. You can smash them all. But I just picked some up from the local grocery store, and they were like it was like stuffing a whole freaking loaf of bread down my throat.
They look like.
And then I had to go eat
donuts.
dinner after that. I had to pretend like I didn't just do that and go eat my wife's dinner.
Yeah, we had a Krispy Kreme in our area, and that was why I wanted to be a cop. And then they went out of business in our area before I became a cop. So we've got Hy-Vee and Fairway. That's about it.
That's a shame. I miss Krispy Kreme.
So I guess, as social media works out, I sent the friend request to you and you followed back, and we've kind of been back and forth a little bit on TikTok for the past year or so. Yeah. You've been doing a lot of cool stuff over there, and I felt like if there was anybody I wanted to have on the show, it was definitely you.
Well, thank you.
I think a lot of the followers on our side kind of follow you too, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to kind of talk to you, see what you were all about, get your background, and then also what's going on with the platform. So
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm honored. I love it. This is my second podcast appearance. I was also on Modern Cop, the Modern Cop
Okay.
podcast.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a while ago. And yeah, so no, yeah, I know that you've popped up quite a few times on my feed, and we've had some like quips back and forth in the comment section. And I was like, oh man, this guy's funny.
A little bit. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Like there's this weird kind of quiet network of like cops doing stuff on social media, and then
Yeah.
also cops doing stuff with like the podcast platform. And for some reason, it stays quiet and it kind of stays in that dark recess of the corner that no one knows about because we don't want to get outed and then get in trouble, I guess. But can you give us
Yeah,
a little bit of your background, your bio, and then we'll kind of jump into your law enforcement career and go from there.
yeah, sure. So I don't know how much like how in depth you want to get. I I guess I'll just
I
kind
want
of
you
go with what I
crying on the other
um
end like a Oprah episode.
oh, okay, all right. I'll go for that one then. All right, so my start into law enforcement came at like a time where my wife was pregnant, and so there's the start to our crying thing, right? So but I had like no career, right? I was my dad did construction all growing up. I was like his, when your dad does something, you go and work for him. So I was working for him, and I was like, hey, maybe I want to do this, but excuse me. Turns out I suck at construction. So so I we got my I got married to my wife. We moved out to Arizona for a while, and was trying to work construction there. Lost my job. Tried doing some sales just because I was desperate. Went out to Texas with my brother-in-law, and I sucked at that too. So what do you do when you suck at everything? You become a cop.
That's right.
Right. So so yeah, my wife came to me one night. I was like super depressed and like I don't know what to do. Like our kid's gonna be born in a couple months. I have no career, no prospects, no nothing. And she was like, hey, she's like, you like law enforcement, you support law enforcement. Have you thought about doing that before? And I was like, well, I mean, not really. But so I called up my uncle, who is a deputy with LA County, and he was like, oh yeah, dude, do it, and go county. And then I called up my best friend from high school who was also working county. And so then I applied for counties, right? So I was influenced, and I applied with Maricopa County out in Arizona, and
Yeah.
I made it through a couple rounds of the hiring process before they cut me. I also at the same time was applying with Yavapai County Sheriff's Office, which is just north. Um, and they ended up hiring me, and I attribute it, or yeah, I attribute it to one of the trainers there. He ended up as a sergeant, and he sadly passed away just a few months ago from a heart attack. But I thought I botched my oral board because it came to a question where they were like, um, they posed this scenario of, hey, your partner is being held at gunpoint by some criminal. What do you do? And I froze because like I don't have a background in law enforcement. I
Right.
haven't been trained in that way. And so I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And I went through several scenarios, and I was like, I don't know. Do I put my gun down? I mean, do I say that I'm I give up and then fake it and try to. And so I thought I botched it, and he walked me out, and he was like, hey, did you know that if you are presented with lethal force, you are allowed to reciprocate with lethal force? And I was like, yeah. He's like, so that being said, what would you do? And I was like, I'd shoot him. And he was like, pat me on the shoulder. He's like, attaboy. I was like, that's the weirdest attaboy I've ever gotten. But
So when were you getting into it? When did you get into law enforcement? How long ago?
so this was about 2018 that I was applying. So
Okay.
this December is going to complete my 5th year in
So
law enforcement.
numbers were still pretty high at that point when you were testing.
They were fairly high. Yeah, like with Maricopa County, it was like I was testing with like 70 other people. And I
Yeah.
mean, county agencies down there are big. Like they've got 15
Mhm.
counties in the entire state.
Mhm.
The population of Maricopa County is the population of like it's like 4 million. It's the
Yeah.
size of, you know, the whole county is the size of Rhode Island. In like space wise, not population density or anything, but it's like the fourth biggest county. So yeah, there were quite a few. They weren't hurting. Like, no, there weren't any like what do you call them, signing bonuses or anything. So
Right. Right.
but I tested with the Yavapai County. I tested with about 24 other guys, and I think 12 of us, 10 or 12 made it, and then like 4 scrubbed out in the academy.
Yep. So what I was trying to get at there was, I feel like back then, and even further back past that, was like those oral boards were almost kind of like stump the chump type stuff, right? Like, we're going to ask you a question like that, not fully understanding you have no law enforcement experience, and we just kind of want to see how you handle yourself. I don't think they were looking for the right or the wrong answer. They wanted to see how you handled yourself the whole time. But I just, my DRE certification just lapsed. But when we tested out of state, it was in Maricopa County. And that is, like you said, it's a different world down there, man. We were in the jail doing testing. And if you want an experience, go down and do a tour of the jail one time, because you'll learn real quick. You said you got hired on by a county. Were your first months or years inside of a jail, or were you out on the road?
No, so I went straight to the road. They hired from the jail, but I felt like I was like a total wild card when I was going through academy. I was like one of the only ones who didn't have like prior military or law enforcement, whether that was like jail or anything, right? And so like I kind of felt it was a completely different experience for me. I kind of felt like way out of my comfort zone. Like the first 2 weeks were so hard for me. It's just getting used to what it was. Like I kind of tried to think of it as like going into boot camp, right? And that I feel like that, you know, thought process kind of helped me get through it. Because it was, I mean, there's a lot of like stress-free academies nowadays, right? Because they're trying to like bolster retention and stuff like that. The one here locally is a stress-free academy. And when I was going through, because I transferred agencies, when I had to go through like 1 week with their academy to go through like their law week.
Gotcha.
So I was sitting there and like people were talking out of turn and everyone was just like laughing and joking. And I was like, what is this?
Dude, like
this
carrying water bottles around and
getting up out of their seats. And I was like, we would get smoked for any of that. Anyone spoke without raising your hand. Anyone looked at someone the wrong way or said like an off comment, like, man, it's crazy. Just the change that has gone on in like 4 or 5 years.
Right. Because no one can hold on anybody. But yeah, you're not kidding. Like, you know, we would have inspections in the morning, but then they would be inspecting you all day long. Like if your gig line was off, you're doing push-ups. If your hands are in your pockets, you're getting your ass kicked. But now, man, it's like the 13th grade at this point, you know?
No, it really is.
But so here in Iowa, there are some counties where if you get hired on, and this was my start to law enforcement, you go straight to the jail to start off, even though you're certified and you could be on the road. And as much as that wasn't what I wanted to do, it was a great experience that I almost invaluable, because it teaches you how to talk to people. It teaches you a whole different world. So that's why I was just curious if you've been in there before. I've noticed that usually people that start off in the jail have a little bit different social standing when it comes to being a police officer, a little better than others. And I kind of thought maybe you had been, but it sounds like you weren't. So
I did pick up quite a few overtime shifts at the jail, because our jail was super short staffed, and so there were people pulling people off of the road. So I did get to experience that side, but it wasn't where I started.
Gotcha. Yeah, I started off at a county where initially, like in my interview, they're like, yeah, like 6-7 years you might see the road. And then I got into the jail and they're like, it's more like 12-13 years. And I'm like, man, wow. I can't wait it out. That's what took me to Icarus, was I couldn't wait it out. My wife graduated college and we moved a little closer to home. But what moved you from your first agency to your new one?
So it was just we wanted to kind of change in everything. So we were actually where originally my wife like grew up. So she wanted out. She was like, I never want to go back. And then I ended up getting hired where she where she grew up. And so she was like, first opportunity, like I want to get out of there. So we just like we saved our money and I picked up so many overtime shifts, and as soon as we were ready, I hit I hit like a 2.5 year mark, and it was 3 years that my agency wanted for lateral. And so I started the process thinking that, hey, it'll take 6 months, whatever, to get
Smart.
there. And they hired me within like 6 weeks. Like it was not like they were hurting so bad up here. Like and just like I'm second in seniority on the day shift, Monday through Thursday. Like that's where I am right now. Like they've hired so many people and have had so much movement. Like my sergeant sat down in the squad meeting and we were picking our beats, and he goes, he goes to the first officer, what's your beat? And he's like, okay, all right, Kenyon, what's your what? And I was like, me already? Like, I'll what? I thought this
I
was
wasn't
day
prepared
shift.
for this question.
No, I wasn't. Here, get back to me in a second. But like, that's how much turnover that has been going on.
Yeah,
and
it's
I
everywhere.
can't believe it.
It's real bad
It
everywhere.
is.
The agency that I'm at now, we're full staffed for now. We got a guy retiring at the end of the month though, which is going to already set us back. But
Yeah.
my last agency, they were down like 10 or 12, and they were a department of 40, 45. So you're thinking a quarter of the department is gone. How do you fix that issue? And we're starting to see the things like you talked about, where academies are kind of cakewalks now, and people are getting hired that probably wouldn't have made it 5, 6, 7 years ago. Testings are like 12 people.
Yeah, we have 2 full-time overtime shifts for the day shift.
That's crazy.
For just like, we're just down that many bodies. So they're hiring a lot of people, but they're going through FTO and through academy.
Well, right. What most citizens don't understand is when you hire somebody, it's a year before you're going to see them on their own.
Oh, absolutely.
If they make it that far.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing for the stress and for all that, like recouping from all that overtime?
So it's not mandatory, at least yet, right? Okay. So like we haven't reached that point where we have to do the overtime, but it does put a lot of strain on the officers that are working the beat. Like so comparatively, I know that night shift is typically, it's a different beast, right? It's different calls, but it's depending on where you're at. Sometimes the call load is a little bit lower, right? Because just nothing, not as many things happen at night. So yesterday I took like 8 calls in one day, which is what I would take in 1 week in the night shift, right? And it's just like we have as many people on the day shift as we do on the night shift, because that's just where it's minimum staffing. So it's just we're trying to hire laterals more than anything, because you can push them out on the road quick. And there are other officers that are leaving. I'm over on the west side, so we have people coming from California and Oregon, and we hope that those people are the ones that are like the good ones from there. Right. That's why they want to leave. But you are seeing those. We have one from San Diego right now that's going through FTO. So like I think our chief keeps calling it like poaching, and it kind of is. But
what's unique about your area though, and some of these people that you're getting from those big areas, they probably don't want to be there because of the the political mess they're going through. So they see your area as an opportunity to kind of revitalize their career, which was big for me when I moved too. But what? Let me back up real quick, because you talked about the academy. Everyone always wants to know, how long was the academy? How long was the FTO process? What was that like for you? Obviously, you said you took it like a boot camp, which is good.
Yeah. So we had a stress academy, and like it was 20 weeks. So the first 6 weeks were really the hardest. It was like when they push you the most, and that's when the most people scrubbed out. But after that, it kind of got a little bit easier. They got a little bit more relaxed, even though we still had the inspections and we still had the, you know, the rules, and we got smoked and all that kind of stuff. But like, I felt like it was a really good intro, for especially for someone like me who didn't have that kind of experience. And man, I remember, we went through the first week. We had a few like stress inoculation exercises and classes and stuff. Like, excuse me. They had one time we came in from, like, we were getting smoked, whatever, you know, and we come back into the classroom because they would pull us out. We would go outside, and we went back into the classroom, and just everything was a mess. They flipped over tables. They spread all the different, you know, all your binders, your papers, everything around. And they just yelled at us, just like, get it cleaned up, get it cleaned up, get it. And they were yelling at us the whole time. And I was the whole time I was thinking, oh, this freaking sucks, dude. I hate this.
What the hell did I sign up for?
Exactly. And you know, you go, and I saw things that I had never been exposed to before. You know, we talked about like homicide scenes and suicide scenes and all these different things, and they would show pictures, and I was sitting there just like wide-eyed, like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And then I learned, though, getting out of academy and getting onto the road, that they prepare you in the academy for your worst times, but your worst times, they don't happen really that frequently.
Right.
Like, the most of the stuff that you're dealing with is kind of mundane, like, stuff that it's just repetitive, and it gets old. And that is where I think that the most valuable thing that I learned in academy was, don't be complacent.
Yeah.
Because that's something that, you know, we can easily fall into if we are just going through the routines of the mundane. So I feel like I had really good instructors in academy, and a lot of people were like, don't get complacent. They just had that on repeat.
So we had our issue. One, we were only 13 weeks, which we are the nation's quickest academy, is obviously kind of a problem. How do you teach an officer what they need to know in 13 weeks? But it was like, week one, you were getting smoked. And for those who don't know what smoked is, that's basically they're running you, they're making you do physical exertion stuff because you messed up. So that first week we were getting smoked, but it was very clear that they were not looking to fail anyone, because weeks 2 through 12 was kind of like, yeah, we're taking this seriously, but we're not like pushing you as hard as we have to. And then week 13 was like, hey, don't forget, you could still fail out of here. We're going to come back to what we used to do. We had one instructor that was real big about that, not, you know, being complacent. And I feel like, yeah, you're kind of right. It was a lot of like preparing you for the worst that you're going to see, but it was almost like they were making it sound like you're going to see it every single day. So there was almost kind of that shock when you came out of the academy and you're like, this isn't what I was expecting. Now what do I do? And then you have to really fall back on your FTO. I had some good FTOs, but some weren't the greatest. How was your FTO program?
My FTO program was pretty good. I felt like I had really good trainers the first time around. Second time was a different experience, but I'll get into that a little bit. But FTO is really when I got exposed to, you know, some of the things that, like, we kind of, you know, that had been touched on in academy, but you know, I was honestly like, I mean, not having experience with it, I was like a little bit terrified, you know, because it was just going into the unknown for me. And so, like, the phase one was the first time I had ever had any interaction with a dead body. And it was my first one. I felt like I kind of got eased into it a little bit. Like, the first one wasn't that bad. I mean, it was a naked dude just like on his recliner, and he was like older. Naked. Yeah, they are always naked. I don't understand. And I made a video about that too, but everyone's fully clothed in the video.
We're not on Pornhub.
It's just me.
Different website.
It's just, yeah, right. But I remember one time I was driving around with my FTO, and he started talking to me about, like, he's like, hey, your self-initiated activity needs a little bit of work. Like, it's kind of low. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? And he's like, you know that you can make traffic stops now. Like you're a cop. I was like, oh man, okay.
What, what,
Like,
what do I pull over though? What
I
can I
learned.
pull over? What can't I pull over?
Yeah, and I don't know if my experience was like if I was just like naive or if that's just kind of everyone's experience getting into this. Like you don't really realize, or maybe some people do. Maybe some people are like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get them now." But
With that
I
exact
was
voice too.
like, with that exact voice, exactly. They call over the radio. They're like, "I'm gonna make a traffic stop, dispatch."
Start me a second and a third. I don't know what I got, but start me 7.
Grandma's getting all sketchy.
She's not pulling over for me.
Oh, so that was quite it was a different experience. Like, my first couple of traffic stops, and then I was still on phase 1 when I made a traffic stop where I had a lady like fake her name and date of birth and everything, and dispatch came back to me over the radio, and they're like, "Hey, copy information, the driver information you've given us, she's deceased." I was like,
She's breathing right now. I don't know.
I'm not a detective, but that sounds like a clue. So I had a felony off of that, and like I still remember my first arrest was for a misdemeanor. There's a guy who he was driving his pickup and he came around a corner a little bit quick and smacked a girl, like a little girl, maybe like 10 or so, and she was okay. She wasn't like gravely injured or anything. I think she did end up going to the hospital just for like minor injuries. But like my FTO was talking to me and he's like, "Hey, so what are we gonna do?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know." And he's like, "Okay, let's look at the codes and let's find it out." So we found the code and it was misdemeanor. And I was like, "Well, it's a misdemeanor. I mean, we can cite on that." He's like, "No, we're arresting this dude." I was like, "Okay." So I remember my first arrest, and I remember a lot of my first experiences, and it was like it was quite the ordeal. My second FTO, he was like a treasure trove of knowledge. He was this old guy, and like he just like he like knew everything, and he would quiz me on policy. We were driving down the highway, and he's like, "All right, if we had a wrong way driver, what would you do? Would you go on the wrong way and pursue him?" And I was like, no, probably not. He's like, "Good, because that's against policy." I'm like, okay, cool.
I'd hang out the window like cops and I'd shoot the tires
I got
out.
it right.
So like
that's what they do on the TV.
When I went through my first agency with the county, because I was being FTO'd in the jail, it was like very much like sink or swim. They needed to know whether or not I was going to hold up or not. There wasn't a lot of like, here's policy, here's case law, stuff like that. I remember my very first day, this inmate got let into the pod by accident, and was the pod that we were in. He had a no contact order with a guy, and they immediately started duking it out. And it was like, what's the rookie going to do? Is he going to jump in and grab him, or is he just going to watch? And luckily, I jumped in and I kind of grabbed him. I feel like in all FDOs, but especially this one, there's a little bit of luck that goes into it. Like you can have the best of intentions, you can be the most squared away person, but if you don't get a little bit lucky, you're starting your career off wrong. And I think the first bit of luck that I had was I was wearing these pair of Rocky boots, and I'd gotten them from like a work site or something. So they were black and they had huge gray tread on the bottom. And we're sitting there at breakfast, and an inmate goes, "Hey, Dep, were those rock climbing boots?" And I was like, "Nah, they're ass kicking boots. You want to try them out?" Totally nervous, completely shitting my pants, but just spit out whatever I could. And luckily, that got the whole pod going, and that was like the first win for me through county. Yeah. When I jumped over to the next agency, there were a lot of trainers like you talked about with FTO, but there weren't a lot of mentors. And it was very much like, if you had a question, it was like, I don't know, what are we going to do? So it was like 16 weeks of FTO. You had to figure it out for yourself. They're not going to let you do anything criminal. They're not going to let you, beat up on
Yeah.
anybody, but it was on you to figure it out. So a little bit different, but kind of the same in the same way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I guess I
Yeah.
just listening to you and kind of pulling in my own stuff there. But
Yeah.
so you went through the academy, you went through the week-long academy when you switched over agencies, did your FTO.
Mhm.
What specialty assignments
Yeah.
have you been involved in?
So back with the county, I was on the crash team.
Okay.
So I was with the intermediate, like I got the intermediate accident like training out there.
Yeah.
Worked a couple, like we did a few fatals and stuff, and did some follow up on some like serious injury accidents and all that kind of stuff. That did not transfer, unfortunately, when I transferred agencies. They didn't
Okay.
take a lot of what I had. Like I had to get radar certified again, and they had to spray me with OC again, and that was a miserable experience.
Fuck that.
But yeah, no, thank you. So right now I'm actually working on like my promotion packet. I'm eligible for promotion to corporal here.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the year. I'm also working on becoming an FTO because I do want to be like I want to be the mentor, right? Like
Yeah.
we kind of talked about, instead of just the trainer, because I feel like there's a lot of things that I would do differently in FTO, and I think that's the great thing about law enforcement is everyone kind of brings their own piece of themselves to
Mhm.
the job, and I feel like that kind of balances everything out. And
Yeah.
I think that's why it's a good thing to have multiple FTOs. You learn different things, different ways. So, but right now I'm just patrol, and
Okay.
I've had some opportunities, like the traffic teams come up, the bike teams come up, and none of them have spoken to me. Like I've just been like, no, I just like right now, like I like where I'm at,
Yeah.
and I'm I have interests that I want to go into, but like not quite yet. Right.
It's incredibly huge though that you see that and you're cognizant of it and you're not jumping in, because what's the fault of so many, guys that have been on 1 to 5 years? They put in for everything
Mm-hmm.
just to hope to that they get what they want later on, and then they're stuck on some team for 5 years that they have no passion with and no real interest in. It sucks their morale out. So
yeah, and that's like I had the chance to join the accident, or not the accident, but the traffic team. I'm just like, I just don't know that I don't know that I want to sit there and pull traffic all day and take accidents, and that just doesn't sound like something I want to do right now. I like the diversity of patrol.
yeah.
Like even though I complain about all the thefts that I got to take and all the different, all the boring stuff, and I take this guy reported, oh, he's like, well, this happened like 5 weeks ago, I just haven't had the time to report it, but I got to report it now, and I'm like, I can't do anything for you now. But it's you get a little bit of everything.
Yeah. I could never figure out why people would call at like 1 and 2 in the morning to report some shit that happened 4 weeks ago. And they weren't like meth heads or drunk or whatever. You're just like, you could have done this on evening shift. Like, what's going on here?
Right. I legit had that the other, like a few weeks ago. Somebody called at like 2 in the morning. He's like, hey, I want to report all these tools that were taken from my house like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was like,
but I don't have a serial number. I don't have any of the list of shit. I can just tell you that it was around this much. Yeah.
Actually, this guy had the most detailed list that I've ever gotten. The only thing he was lacking was serial number. He didn't have serial numbers for anything. He had the model numbers. So I was like, okay, maybe I can do this, but
I can't put it in NCIC
for you. No, I can't. But so far, nothing's come of it. But shout out to Leads Online for trying.
Yeah. Hey, disclaimer to everyone out there: if you are going to put something in NCIC, make sure it's the serial number and not the model number, because we've had a couple guns pop now that were the model number, not the serial number, and someone was almost taking a trip to jail. So keep an eye out for that.
Serial number is not G17.
Yeah, right.
That's the that's the model.
This thing's wanted in 50 states. So you talked about wanting to be an FTO, and I think that's kind of a great segue into what you're doing right now on social media, because you started off with some of the skit videos. but you also jumped into a lot of like video breakdowns and kind of training videos, which was something we were thinking about doing over here, and you kind of beat us to it. We might do it later on, but you do an excellent job at it, where you take critical incidents and you break them down and kind of give, I guess, a real world perspective on it. Tell us, how long has the platform been around, and then kind of where are the goals, where are you headed, where are you at now, things like that.
Yeah, sure. So I've been on social media now as Tased and Confused for about just a little over a year. Um, and really, like, what got me, so I'll be honest, what got me started is that I was looking for like a side gig, something that was
Yeah.
going to bring a little bit extra money, that was also going to allow me to like stay home, because I've
Hmm.
got a family, I've got 2 kids, and my wife. My wife has some health problems that she makes it so that she can't work. So I'm trying to bring in extra money. And it's done that a little bit, but it's not like a treasure trove or anything. It's not like I'm rolling in the dough. But that's originally how it kind of started. And I remember just like I was scrolling on social media and seeing some of these videos and thinking like, I could do that.
Yeah.
I could make those videos. And so I was just like, okay, I'll just do it. So
Give
I
it a
started.
shot.
And my first videos, I'll be honest, I had a lot of cringe. So and like, there's a level of being on social media that you're just going to hit that cringe factor for so many people.
Yeah.
And I've come to accept that not everyone is going to like everything that you're doing. I mean, aside from the fact that there's so many people that dislike cops anyway. And but nothing on social media is anything that I haven't heard said to my face.
Right.
And so I'm like, I don't even care. You can call me pig. You can say a cab. I'm like, okay. So
Yeah.
your opinion means nothing.
They like to
But
spam that live platform,
they
though. That's for sure.
they do. They do. I was doing lives for a little bit. And then it just kind of fizzled out because I
Yeah.
just like life gets busy, and it just like I felt like it wasn't having the effect that I anticipated.
Right.
And I might get back into it, but I also wanted to figure out how to use like this whole setup, because I would just use my phone camera, and that I just felt like that was
Well,
pretty
and then your arm
bad.
gets tired after about 5.5 minutes. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
ironically, I found more success doing those lives at like 5 in the morning as opposed to 4 or 5 at night, which is completely against all common sense. And
yeah.
that's
It
about the only
is.
time I have now is 4 or 5 at night. But you remember your first arrest? Do you remember your first video?
So my first couple videos, I, my first couple videos were about kind of like political happenings. I'm kind of big into like political podcasts. I like listening to that stuff. I like keeping up on current events. And I had very little direction when I first started. And so I think my first video was when it was around the time that they had the Roe v. Wade thing come out,
Okay.
like the overturning.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like me addressing that and like my thoughts and opinions. And I did a couple of those, and I kind of started to realize that that's not really where I wanted to go. I didn't want to use my persona as like a police officer to bring my politics to the platform.
Right.
And I felt like that was kind of disingenuous, and it was like taking away from like the profession, I guess. Like I don't want to represent the profession with my personal views.
Right.
And so I kind of like redirected myself to where I wanted to go. And I started thinking about just what I wanted to do with it, my goals for. And this motto kind of came to me that the thought I had was that before I was a cop, I wasn't. And that just kind of clicked something in my head where I was like, I'm talking to people who aren't cops.
Right.
I'm talking to me before I had this training and experience. So what do I want to do? What do I want to bring to this platform to help people understand what it's like being a cop, why cops do the things that they do, because I didn't understand it before, but now I do. Now I'm in the midst of it. And so that's where I'm like, I like case law anyway, because I want to do my job like the best that I can according to I'm a believer in the Constitution, of course, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to support people's rights because they're also my rights, they're everybody's rights, and I don't want to be violating people's rights because that's my right too.
Right.
So like I got into case law, and I was like, I want to bring this to people. I want to tell people why cops do the things that they do. So that's kind of where that's where it stemmed from.
We're so terrible though. Like we don't want to be the one that creates bad case law, but then we're not proactive for the most part about going out and researching case law. So we wait for it to come down and be told what to do from our admin or our county attorneys, and then we just kind of run around, doing our own thing. But very, very cool that you're doing that. Very, very cool that you're on top of that. What like what accomplishments do you feel like you've had so far since starting everything? Has there been like one big one, or has it just been a bunch of things collectively?
So it has kind of been kind of collectively some small things. I'm nearly at 165,000 followers on TikTok, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Like, and and it just keeps growing. It's slower now. Like I feel like
Yeah.
TikTok's a different place than it was a year ago.
Yeah.
And like like my content isn't being pushed out in the same way that it was. Right, things that would go like viral a year ago aren't doing so well. But that's fine. Like that, my a part of my goals has kind of changed too. I just like making content. Like it's not so much about like the money it brings in or anything. It's really it's my creative outlet, right? It's something that I get to do it's fun for me, it's entertaining for others, and it's educational in some cases. Trying to work toward my goal. So as far like going back to my accomplishments, I've had a couple like brand promotions. A couple people reach out to me and say, "Hey, like we want to send you a free product if you'll
Yeah.
do brand placement." So I had this company called Pack Fresh reach out to me, and I'm not sure if they're still around. They haven't done a whole lot lately. But I also had Arrest My Vest reach out.
Yeah.
And I know that they're pretty big too. They're still going. They're still doing their thing, but they've got a really good product.
Yeah.
They sent me a couple air fresheners and then like a bottle of their spray, and I've used it a couple times, especially during like the summer months when it's
Yeah.
all warm outside and stuff. But
Yeah. One of our
so that
fans reached out to them because we happened to mention them one time, and they sent us a care package too. They're a great company. Absolutely. What we talked about in the episode when after they sent us that care package was about how like it's legit and it works. It's not like Febreze where it wears off after about 10 minutes and smells like funky. So yeah, not to cut you off there. Sorry, I just thought it was kind of cool that we both had
you're fine.
the same.
No, you're absolutely right. So I was driving an Explorer around, and I went to do a traffic stop one night, and I switched off my lights, but they didn't switch off, and they were stuck on. And so I was just code 3 everywhere I was going though. So I had to drop that off. I had to drop that off and then pick up a new spare. Like we had to shut the fuse off, like the main fuse.
Yeah.
And I had to go take it and get it repaired. So I'm currently in a Taurus and I hate it because the seatbelt gets caught on me every time I try to get out. But I went and I picked up, like I left my Explorer there for a few days, and I went and I picked up a couple things, and I opened the door and it still smelled, because I sprayed the inside of my car and it still smelled like Arrest My Vest. And if that's not a good product placement, then I don't know what is.
So I guess, and you probably already know this, but I did a little bit of research. I think the reason that you're so throttled right now is because everyone is getting throttled on all social media. It's called like the TikTok 200 right now, where the stuff, I don't know if it's because of the whole congressional hearing, or if it's because of how you can pay to be promoted. but everyone is getting hit right now real hard. I'm glad to see that you're still pushing through that, though. I think it's turning a lot of people away. So
yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I'm trying to trying to kind of slowly build my platform on Instagram now.
Okay.
Like I feel like I started making memes and stuff, and I started pushing out a little bit more more content on that. I feel like some of the I'm trying to I guess upgrade my quality of content. Like I've got a DSLR camera. I started doing some, my more recent videos have been used on that, and it kind of looks a little bit nicer. And I just bought like a wireless Rode mic to give me a little bit better audio quality and that kind of stuff. And really just I'm trying to build it in different ways and trying to expand a little bit, because TikTok's probably not going to be here forever. And especially if, if this stuff with Congress goes through and if it gets banned or anything, we're just going to be SOL. Right?
Yeah.
Anyone who's built a platform on TikTok is just going to be, gone.
Well, there's probably already a platform out there we don't even know about yet that's going to take off.
And you're right. TikTok kind of came out of nowhere, and I resisted it for the first couple of years, but then the pandemic hit, and I was like, you know what? Like, they asked us not to do, as many. They were like, only do traffic stops if like it's an egregious offense. They're like, otherwise, just try to limit your contact, take calls over the phone if you can. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna download TikTok. Just watch it on patrol.
Got nothing else going on at this point, so
yeah, I was like, okay, I might as well give in. But also one more accomplishment I wanted to specify, and maybe this isn't like a specifically an accomplishment per se, but I'm proud of it. I made it to anti-TikTok cop on Instagram.
Nice. Very cool.
And I feel like I felt like, oh, I've made it.
We have arrived.
Because go ahead.
No, I guess I was just gonna say, wow, total brain fart there. That's great for a podcast. Sorry. But before we, jumping into where you're going from here, I did want to know, because you talked about how you started this during the pandemic and how there was all that downtime. Was there any pushback from the admin, from Darth Vader?
So the only pushback that I got was there was a TikTok I recorded, and my understanding was that it just had to be like off the clock. So I waited until I was off the clock. I had to gas up. So I set it all up, and I did this like weird little quirky video of me gassing up and my car, like, because I have a habit of like when I go to gas up my car, I like slap the gas cap so it opens. And then like I did that once, and I was like, oh man, what if I did a video like I was like spanking my car, and then it made like, kind of sexual sounds, and it was pretty funny, and it was going like it was building some speed. And I get a text from my sergeant at the time, and it was just the link, and I clicked it, and it went to my video, and I was like, what is he trying to tell me here?
I then called in
I was
sick
like, it's
for the
so
next 4
ambiguous. And so I was like, yeah. And he was like, you need to delete this. And so like I deleted it. I took it down, and then he was like, he pulled me into his office when I got back on shift, and he was like, hey, that was hilarious. But someone complained about you doing it on city property, so you no more doing it on city property. So at that point, because I was doing some, I would cover my badge, but I was doing some most of my videos in my uniform.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna unambiguous. I'm not gonna do it in uniform. I'm not gonna do anything that's gonna look like, have the appearance of that I'm on like the taxpayer dime while I'm doing this. So that's where I kind of transitioned to my like active shooter vest.
Yeah.
My plates and stuff. So that's what I do now.
Right on. Yeah, it's ironic that we can't record on city property, even though we can be recorded with no objection based on the First Amendment. But it's neither here nor there.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They had no
So
problem if I did it in my car. Just not
even though
in,
that's like,
not on the
yeah,
gas. Yeah.
heaven forbid, yeah, we do it out in public where,
Heaven
yeah,
forbid.
right. Where you kind of talked about how you want to build on Instagram. Where is Tased and Confused going from here? Are we going to focus more on skits, more on the training, a combination of everything? Are you going to go into OnlyFans? What are we doing?
I mean, I've thought about it. I'm not gonna lie, because I've heard that a lot of these chicks pull huge numbers, and maybe people want to see a cop on OnlyFans, but as long as my wife's okay with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, where I want to go is I like I mentioned before, like I'm trying to kind of upgrade my quality. Because I'm everyone, like, you become a content creator, and I would not by no means call myself like an influencer, but like, you know um I like creating this content, and like I feel like I'm evolving as a content creator, and I want to have a little bit more of like and maybe this sounds weird from like a cop, but by the way, I recently learned that I'm like more of like a right brain, which is you're more like creative side.
Sure.
And we took this like little quiz in academy, and me and another guy were the only ones that got this one specific statistic. And they're like, by the way, the guys that get this statistic, they don't last in law enforcement usually. So I was like, oh, great. So
days.
so, but here I am 5 years later, and I love what I do, and I love kind of bringing that to everyone else, and kind of being that like entertaining, bringing that entertainment factor. And I honestly don't feel like I'm like that funny of a guy like in real life, but I get to like write down all these things, and I get to draw from like my own experience, and find the humor in my own life,
Yeah.
and kind of bring that to a format to share it with others. And I've found that so many people are like, man, I relate to that. Oh man, I get that so much. Like, I had that video of like dropping the license in like the abyss of your car.
Yes.
And that one, like, that's one of my most liked videos, because it kind of hit the nerve of like the public being on traffic stops and like taking longer than you would think it is, and then cops being like, oh, I have done that before, and everyone like, it just like it hit that just that, I guess, nerve. I already said that to repeat myself. It hit that nerve, and like I love that.
Time absolutely stops when that happens, and yeah, people don't understand that. I think, and you're very right when you talked about how like your platform, you're using it as you're telling people who aren't cops what it's like to be a cop, but then on the other side, you're still hitting it with cops and like reliving things and telling that funny side. I think it's huge because the new generation of cop, they don't want to sit in a classroom and they don't want to hear this is how we've always done it, or this is why, like, do it because I said so. They want to know the why behind it. And then on the other side, we're learning that like this career takes a toll on you. You have to get that creative side out a little bit. And as much as a lot of people are getting in trouble on social media, there is definitely an outlet there for you if you can do it responsibly and do it correctly. And it might just save 10 years on your career or even 10 years on your life. I got to give props to you because one of your latest videos hit on mental health, which is obviously a big thing that we're on. It was very impactful, kind of outside the norm for you, but I thank you for taking that leap of faith and that step off of your norm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's kind of stuff that I've been wanting to address lately. Like I said, I took a break, back at the beginning of the year. I didn't make, first of all, I was demonetized
Okay.
around the first, or around December of 2022, and it was a 6-month demonetization, and that was like a huge blow to me.
Yeah.
Because it's what I had been doing to bring a little bit of extra money. It helped pay for gas, it helped pay for groceries, and in the economy that we're in, that's like that any extra just helps. So I kind of quit doing content so much. I had to go. I had to go like start giving plasma and stuff. Like I got the little plasma mark in my arm just so that we could get that extra money rolling in, and because we're trying to this is my house. We're trying to do some like renovations and stuff to it. And so like we just have we're always bleeding funds, and we're always needing more. We got 2 little mouths to feed, all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to balance everything. And so it was like super demoralizing. But as time kind of progressed, I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting back into the motions and wanting to get back into it. But I was thinking to myself, how do I want to change? What do I want to do differently? And I recently, without going into like too much detail, within my family, we had like a mental health crisis, right? And it was a completely different experience. I have been through so many mental health crises, being on the other side.
Yeah.
It's not me, it's not my family that's dealing with that. I'm dissociated from it, right? I'm helping you, and I've got to take you to the hospital because of the mental state that you're in. But when I had to take my own, a member of my own family to the hospital for their mental state, that was something that was just completely eye-opening, right? It was a completely new experience that I had never dealt with before. And then it's funny. And this is where I sat down on the toilet at work, and right in front of me is this paper that says toilet talk on it, and it says September is National Suicide Awareness Month. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And so I went and I made that, and like I felt I was super proud of it. I felt like I was like the best acting that I've ever done in my life. And I put it together. I edited it. I put the music in, and I uploaded it to TikTok, and it did nothing. It was like 200, then 300, then 400, just slowly. And it built up till like it maxed out at like 2,700.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Never do I expect. I don't feel entitled to all these views, but I'm like, I want that message of anything else. I want that to get to my followers. I have 165,000 followers. I want them all to have that kind of message. And I wish that something like that was kind of pushed out a little more. It was addressed a little bit more. And I've been trying to rack my brain on like, is it like, because I mean, obviously like there's a flash of a gun in there because I want to have that effect. The emotional draw and all of that build up. But like I'm trying to rack my brain, like why did this not get pushed out so much? But that's neither here nor there. The point is that that's kind of the focus that I want to take. I want to take more of like a serious, more emotional take to my content, as well as just kind of the other stuff. Like, I want to keep the comedy and keep the skits. And I love like this new series that I've started with the city cop versus the county deputy. I love doing that. That's so much fun.
Yeah.
And I actually had my captain in the locker room. Lots of stuff happens in the locker room, the bathroom. We don't mention that. That goes on another website. But he's like half naked, dude. And he's like, hey, I saw that donut video with the city cop and the county deputy. And I was like, yeah. Shade covering my eyes, like, oh, okay. And
so it was the like, bottom half that was naked, is what you're saying.
Yeah. He was like, it was hilarious, dude. And it was a reminder too that I do have to be careful because my upper management does see what I put out there.
Yeah, man, we had a corporal at my old agency so like the old building, the locker room was a big U, and his locker was on the back side, so no reason to come around this corner. Every day he would spend an hour getting ready, completely buck ass nude, and when he'd hear that door open and close, he'd come around the corner just to go, "What's up?" Just to traumatize us a little bit. But what I will say, man, is that the fact that that video got over 2,000 views should actually tell you how high up you are because of that restrictor plate that's been put on everyone. And the fact that that video has reached over 2,000 people means that it's had an impact on over 2,000 people. Somebody heard the message, which is so important right now, because we have to normalize this dirty thing that we have never wanted to talk about before, and that a lot of admin don't want to talk about. So again, I thank you for that part of it. It was a courageous thing for you to do. Very, very cool. As we wrap this thing up, tell everyone how they can find you, how they can go see videos like the ones you put out about mental health.
Yeah, so I'm on the big 4 platforms. So TikTok obviously is where I've got the biggest following. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm there, but it's mostly just like it's linked to my Instagram, and Instagram will like Facebook will repost what I put on Instagram.
Yeah,
but I do like Facebook. That's where I'm a follow. Like I follow you guys on there, and we comment on each other's things. Like I follow people like Thoughts of a Patrol Officer on there. I like the stuff he does. But yeah, so sorry, my ADD brain is like everywhere. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm on YouTube too. I was focusing a little bit on some like what you said, critical incidents on YouTube. I took a pause on that just because like I felt like that was kind of starting to be detrimental to my health. I don't know. I'll tell you, I don't know how Donut Operator does it. It's probably because he doesn't work as law enforcement anymore.
Right.
But like I was starting to, it was really starting to affect me. Like just searching for shootings and like watching them over and over again and trying to analyze them and put it down. And it was also like a huge time hog.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of time and effort.
Dude, it takes a long time to edit a podcast, let alone a video podcast or a YouTube video. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sergeant
Props
Zeke.
to you guys for doing that.
Oh, thanks, man. Sergeant Zeke had talked about how, like, if you don't need to see this stuff, don't see it because it's detrimental to your mental health. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, those videos are kind of a murky area because it's stuff we don't want to talk about. It's hard to, talk about the shortcomings of the officer, but we have to, because we have to educate people so they don't make the same mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, absolutely.
I think we're going to wrap it up because it's been an awesome episode. We've been talking about quite a bit. Go check out Kenyon at Tased and Confused, like he said, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. He does have it, and YouTube. Otherwise, please check our stuff out. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you've already followed all that stuff. But we're doing what we can to break the stigma of mental health and then break the restrictor plate of social media. So, Swagger, if you're listening out there, we're thinking about you, buddy. We'll get you out as soon as we can. Otherwise, stay safe, everybody, and we'll get this together.
All right. Thanks for having me.